Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests, with host Christina Nichman.
A new mix to business networking and interviews. Join Savvy Central Radio for our third live interview/networking event, the focus being marketing in the 21st century. Our guest this June 17th will be Malco Ebers of NYBC. Get your tickets today at bit.ly.com/savvyradio. Hello everyone, and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Each week on Savvy, we host successful individuals and business owners, inviting them to share their dreams, stories, wisdom, and lessons learned in their field of business. Our guest today is Josh Gressel. Josh is a clinical psychologist. Today, Josh joins us to share his book, Embracing Envy. Envy is a universal emotion, yet people are very reluctant to confess their envy of another. In Embracing Envy, Josh Gressel suggests it is our shame at admitting we feel inferior to another person that keeps envy so hidden. Through interviews with everyday people, reviews of mainstream psychological research, and lessons from wisdom literature, this book delves into how envy can be seen as a useful tool in our daily lives. To find out more about Josh, visit his website at joshgressel.com. Hi, Josh. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm fine, Christina. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very happy you could come join us today. You're going to share about your book, Embracing Envy, Finding the Spiritual Treasure in Our Most Shameful Emotion. And it's something I don't think we touch on very often, shame, guilt, and all of those icky emotions. And it's very important to go there. Share with us a little bit about how you came to penning your book.
Well, it's interesting. I haven't heard that term penning your book for such a long time because, we word process our book now, but that's, so how I came to write it was really a combination of a couple of factors. The first was that I really noticed that I would become intensely envious anytime I would hear somebody's writing a book or somebody'd written a book or someone's talking about their book. And I had this dim awareness that meant I probably wanted to write a book myself if I could admit it. But I didn't really know what to do with the emotion itself. I just felt like, oh, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to feel that. I shouldn't feel that. And I pushed it away someplace. Then when I decided that I was going to try to do something a little more conscious about it, because, after all, I am a psychologist, I should be a little bit more adept at dealing with my unpleasant emotions. I started to research envy, and what I found was either really, really academic and, from my point of view, not very useful, or it was superficially moralistic. Envy is a sin, don't feel it. And I didn't find that very helpful either. So I essentially decided to kill two birds with one stone and get a book written about envy and learn about envy in the process.
Well, brings me to an interesting question, because I hear people interchangeably use envy and jealousy. What is the difference between the two?
Yeah, I at this point, when I hear people do that, I'm so sensitive to it now that I actually have a kind of visceral reaction, like somebody's running their fingers down the chalkboard. They're not even synonyms, and they get used interchangeably. For a couple of reasons I can go into if you want, but
sure.
Basically, let me just first define them. Jealousy is actually in many ways a much simpler emotion. It's very straightforward. Jealousy is wanting to protect what is rightfully yours. And that usually shows up in the relationship triangle. You see your partner, your spouse flirting with somebody else, you get jealous because you want to protect the primacy of that relationship. We see it all the time on, movies and tabloids and, jealousy. We all know that emotion. Envy, on the other hand, is wanting what someone else has that you don't. And whereas jealousy is pretty straightforward, it's usually about relationships. Envy is got infinite options. You can be envious of your neighbor's more successful children. You can be envious of your coworker's better figure. You can be envious of your friend's more interesting job. You name it. I mean, anything you desire, you can be envious of. So envy is a much more complex emotion, and usually it's a much more hidden emotion Because for me to say I'm envious of you really means, or really, at least it translates internally for us as I feel inferior to you. I'm not as good as you. I'm not as successful as you. I can't do what you can do. And most of us are really just not comfortable stating that quite so baldly.
Interesting, because I had always seen envious of someone as I'd like to have what you have, but I feel like I could get it, but I want what you have. And jealousy is I want what you have, period. And so I guess my own definition had been wrong all these years myself. So I'm glad you filled me in on that.
Yes, but Christina, what you are putting your finger on that I think is important is that envy is on a continuum. On the far left, let's say, the more benign form of envy is exactly what you're describing. I'm envious of your ability to play tennis. I'm envious of, your ability to do this or that, where we openly admit our envy. And it's really akin to emulation. I'd like to be more like you. I'd like to emulate you, to be like you. That's on, the easy end of the continuum. All the way over on the other extreme is a word that, the word is in German. We don't have it in English, but it's called Schadenfreude. And it means to take pleasure in another person's pain.
Whoa.
And that's the kind of envy where, I don't know how old you are, Christina, but, about 10, 15 years ago, there were these figure skaters, Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So so for your listeners who don't remember the story or weren't around for the story, Tanya Harding, they were both figure skaters, both competing to be in the Olympics. And Nancy Kerrigan was outperforming Tanya Harding. Tanya Harding had her boyfriend whack Nancy Kerrigan across the knee with some kind of metal pole or something like that. She is literally taking pleasure in her downfall. And frankly, those kinds of incidents, we don't always act them out, but taking pleasure in another person's fall from grace, if we're honest with ourselves, I think we're all prone to them. I think we can all find that time or remember that time when we secretly were gleeful that someone who outperforms us suddenly had, a bad turn of luck. And that's Schadenfreude.
Yeah. So can I ask you, is really envy about us feeling deep down inside that we couldn't possibly have what they have, so we want to cause them to have a downfall?
Well, I think that's when it's at the extreme that I was just describing. Yes. I mean, that level of ugly envy it's kind of in proportion to the degree to which we feel impotent to change our lot. Our envy will get uglier and uglier. And it can, at the extreme, it can be really acting it out. Yeah. But, deep down, I'm not quite sure if we're going to get to this through questions, but I want to make sure and say it. I believe that envy has a deep purpose because envy is found throughout all of recorded history. If you go back to the Greeks, 800 BC, a man named Hesiod talked about envy. If you go to the Bible, the second generation of humans recorded in the Bible, Cain and Abel, it's found in every language. So in other words, it's a universal human emotion. And my belief is that we would not have something like that unless it had a purpose and a meaning.
Wow. So that brings me to ask you then, how can you take a negative emotion, or we pin positive, negative on things. They don't necessarily have to be either, I guess, but how would you take something that can be envious and maybe even on the extreme end and change it and figure out the meaning for it and use it for something good in your life, turn it around, as it were?
Great question. Well, the way I like to say it, my kind of mantra with this is that envy is not a signal or not a sign that there's something wrong with you. It's a sign that there's something right with you that you're not claiming. So there's, the example that I opened with about my wanting to write a book. I was envious of people who are writing books. That's very clear cut. I'm envious of of successful authors. Therefore, it really shows that I want and need to write a book. And that's true. It was absolutely true. Since I've written a book now, I'm no longer envious of people who write books. Now I'm envious of people who sell them, who get their books sold.
Yeah.
All right, but sometimes the correspondence is not as clear. So, for example, I used to be envious of famous people. And it was kind of bizarre because I would be in a supermarket checkout line, looking at the tabloid, seeing Britney Spears' latest escapade and feeling envious of her. And I didn't understand it because I don't want to be a pop star. I don't want to be Britney Spears. Why am I envious?
Yeah.
And it took some digging, but what I came to understand is that I needed to become more visible in the world. And my envy of famous people stemmed from that need to show up more fully in my life to people around me. And once I started to do that, I stopped being envious of famous people. I'm not envious of them anymore.
Mm. So in essence, when you're saying to me that really envy is actually something good, that's showing you what's right about you, that you're just not claiming, it could be that there's a number of gifts and talents that you haven't brought into the world in a big enough way that could satisfy your inner desires.
You got it. You got it. It's really, and it's wonderful in that way because it kind of cuts through the bull that we tell ourselves. Like for decades, I told myself I can't write a book, but I never stopped being envious of people who did. So it doesn't let you go to sleep to your larger self. It kind of keeps prodding you and poking you and making you pay attention to something that you want if you'll just listen to the message that you're being given.
So the more and more you feel uncomfortable, it's really your inner or maybe even higher self trying to poke you and say, hey, you can be big, you can be bigger and better than this. There's more talents out there that you're not using and bringing to the world in a big enough way.
Yes, and what I want to say, the more uncomfortable you are, I think, is the more you're fighting the call. So if you pay attention, if you take a more compassionate attitude toward your envy, you won't have to feel such a terrible jolt in order to, for your soul to get your attention. That's just the degree to which we block ourselves, is the degree to which it gets more and more extreme and trying to wake us up.
I like what you're mentioning here, Josh, because I think our society on a whole doesn't like to approach all emotions. Maybe good ones, feel good ones, pleasure ones. But I think often not only envy, but with a lot of negative emotions, we go straight for hiding it, putting it under the surface. And I think it might also account for a lot of the over texting we're doing. We're online. We're trying to get our approval from others out loud. I got 100 likes on Facebook for this post. And I think it stemmed from really not getting that from within ourselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Christine. It's really a focus on the external rather than the internal. And if we're more internally focused, and this, in this case, envy is an example of how to pay attention to what I use the word soul, call it higher self, say whatever you're comfortable with, but your internal self is calling out to you and paying attention to that more than, what you look like on your latest Instagram thing.
Yeah. So for anyone out there, say someone's listening in, they're feeling this uncomfortable feeling about whatever situation it is, and they're starting to identify it with envy. Where should they begin to start approaching, getting deeper into discovering what this envy is all about?
Yeah, great. I think the first thing is be compassionate with yourself. In other words, don't push the envy away. Don't say, oh, that's terrible, stop feeling that. Let yourself say, be curious. What can this mean? What can this mean about me? And that's why, again, I'll repeat that mantra. Envy is not a sign that there's something wrong with you. It's a sign that there's something right with you that you're not claiming. Trust that. Just trust that. We are not defective human beings. We don't feel these things unless there's a reason for it. And the more compassionate, positive attitude you take toward yourself, the smoother and the more readily you'll be able to identify the way in which you need to grow. Now, this isn't all just feel good. I mean, it requires hard work. Once you say, okay, I know I need to write a book, you actually have to do it. It's not like I'm okay, you're okay, everything's wonderful. Yes, you are okay. And that with claiming that part of yourself, there's a responsibility. I think we all have a responsibility to be our fullest selves, not just for ourselves, because we do feel much, much better when we're more whole, but also for the rest of humanity. Humanity needs the gifts that we have to offer, and we have the responsibility to provide them.
Well, there's a reason you were born with them, and that you have them within you to not only keep them inside of yourself, but to let them out. And I like that you keep coming back to the fact that there's really nothing to be fixed. You're not a human being who needs to be fixed. Because I think when I was focusing a lot of reading self-help books and stuff like that, my take in the beginning to approaching these books was, I'm going to fix myself by reading all these books and make myself a better human being. What I've come to realize is just what you say. It's not so much about fixing yourself as becoming more aware of what's already there and how you can just grow it.
Wow, perfect. Yes. I mean, I have a whole thing about the self-help industry because I think to some extent it capitalizes on people's anxiety and low self-esteem or their sense of lack. Just like you're saying, I need to fix myself. What book can show me how to do it?
Yeah.
And I don't believe it works. I don't think you can do that. And it's exactly, what I say explicitly in my book, I said, my goal is not to provide easy answers. It's to deepen the questions. Because understanding ourselves better, it's going to just deepen our questions. We will get some answers. Like I've mentioned, I got some answers, and now I just have deeper questions. I can tell you some things I don't know the answer to about envy. With all my reading and with all my research, there's things I don't understand still about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that you're mentioning deepening questions, because really, I think people often think, including myself in the past, that we're trying to get somewhere. Oh, I've got to get to the top of the ladder. I've got to get this position. I've got to become a mom. I've got to get married. That we're trying to rush to the end of the journey and then we'll be happy, without realizing that it's this journey itself that can bring us joy and happiness. We don't need to wait to get to happiness. That it's, the deepening of questions. Where am I now? Where do I want to get to? Different questions that can bring you different results.
Mm-hmm. And life is so mysterious, and it's so, there's so much. Again, I opened the book by saying, I think it's prudent for me to open this book by saying, I do not know.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
We all do our best to understand things, but none of us really know anything. We really don't. We can know some things, but in terms of what do we really understand? And that level of humility, I think, allows for an openness to experiencing life in just a very joyful way. We don't have to control it. We don't have to control ourselves. We don't have to control the world. We don't have to control the people around us.
Yeah, I love that you're mentioning that, because I've come to certain areas of my life where I've tried everything I think I know to solve a particular problem, and it's not working. And then I get to that moment, and I think everyone's gotten to it, where you're just like, okay, that's it. And it's not a giving up so much as I just release. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stop saying I know everything, just release, and in my case, let God. Yeah. And things then start to flow when we don't realize sometimes that we get in our own way and block ourselves from growth because we're just trying to make it happen. And it's almost like we need control and we need to know the answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that you mentioned also, Josh, about the action, because you can start to understand and get a deepening of why you have an envy. Like, I want to write a book. It's something I desire. I see other people doing it. But then it requires that now you take the action. And we had a very interesting guest a couple years ago that said he's done a number of things. He's had 5 world record holder and the Guinness Book of World Records. And he said people come up to me and act like I'm the most amazing person in the universe. And I'm not. I'm just like them. The only difference is I took action, and most people don't.
Yeah, I think that we're born with lots of things, but it's the kind of final step in becoming ourselves. You can identify the gift that you have that you need to bring to the world, and then you really have to do the hard, laborious work of bringing it to fruition. That's part of the process too. I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I spent 8 years writing a book that's 141 pages long. Mm. That's what I don't know what that works out to, like 2 words a month or something. It's just, but most of it was me having to get out of my own way because I'd spent decades telling myself I couldn't do it. But it's just things are not as easy. Mm-hmm. In some ways, they're just not as. It takes a long time. Things take, it's a lot of work.
Well, as it's said, Rome was not built overnight. And I think any great work or any great endeavor doesn't happen overnight. It's something that requires effort, but effort doesn't have to mean awful work. It can mean joyful work over a period of time.
Yeah, I'm having something similar right now in terms of the work of promoting this book. I mean, on one hand, I'm frustrated that I can actually tell an envy story connected to this. I'll get to that in a second. On the one hand, I'm frustrated that it's not a bestseller, that I'm giving all these talks and having to do so much work to promote it. But on the other, it's, first of all, the very act of promotion is developing something within me, a kind of public speaking skill, a comfort in being on radio and podcasts and things like that, that I'm glad to have. And on the other, it's really requiring me to own this message very, very deeply. I thought I had by writing the book, but this is a whole nother level of taking ownership of the message and really feeling it in every cell in my body, is having to talk about it over and over and over and over again. And that's a good thing. So it's all kind of one whole.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a one-step process. And I think that's it. I think sometimes we want to see the whole picture and know how it's going to work out. But it's a never-ending process throughout our lives. That's an awesome process. It doesn't have to be, awful. I mean, wherever you reach to, whatever your goals and passions are, you can reach them, but it's not going to be an overnight thing. And it can be joyful all the while, but it's going to take effort and time. So from people picking up and reading your book, what is your greatest hope that they take away from it?
First of all, to develop a friendly relationship to their own envy, so that they really come to regard it as an ally in their development, that it will help them understand who they need to become and keep them on track to get there. We can't lie to ourselves as much as we try. I tried for 40 years to pretend I didn't want to write a book, and I never succeeded in convincing myself, apparently. My envy would not let me believe myself. Mm. So really learn to befriend your envy and listen to its guidance.
I like that a lot. And I just remember someone this week talking to me. They've gotten one of their greatest wishes happen. They got to speak on a huge stage for a huge platform, and they were very happy about it. It was something they envisioned. They finally brought it to fruition, but they started to get some hate mail. And hearing us talk about envy makes me think that the people who are writing the hate mail have that going on inside of them. There's something inside of them calling them probably to be that bigger self, and they're just projecting whatever onto that other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually brings up an important topic, Christina, because, I thought when I started writing this book that it's all going to be about our envy of other people, but also our fear of other people's envy of us can prevent us from becoming our full selves. If that kind of hate mail would prevent this person from stepping out onto that large stage again, or from shying back in any way, shape, or form, then envy is again being victorious. Mm-hmm. So we need to be aware of that tendency in us. Let me actually say two things. I think there is a degree to which we have to be mindful of living with other people and paying what I call our relationship tax. So, for example, if you're pregnant with twins and your best friend can't get pregnant, you're not going to ask her to throw you a baby shower. I mean, you just don't do that. There's a certain awareness of other people's feelings that you do have to take into account. But that doesn't mean, on the other hand, that you can't take joy in the fact that you're pregnant with twins, that you're going to have these lovely kids. You can't let your fear of someone else's envy spoil the gifts that God's given you. Mm. You just need to be mindful, but not squelch yourself.
Yeah. I really like that you did a take on that, because many years ago, before I started doing what I'm doing now, I remember my mentor saying, watch out. When you get out there and you get big enough, you're going to get a lot of hate. I was like, gee, thank you. That makes me not want to do it.
Has that proven to be true, Christina? Did that come your way?
Actually, I have gotten some negative people come my way. But, when I got to that point, I was very sure of myself and where I was in myself and what I was providing people, that I was able to let it slide off me and not hold it and take it as, how should you say it? Take it upon myself.
Yes, yeah. And I think sometimes being able to correctly identify, well, this is really just the other person's envy, It takes some of the sting out of their words because you realize it's coming from a place of their own sense of inadequacy, and it's more about them, much more about them than it is about anything you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And from all that you've gone through in promoting the book and getting through your own envy issues and writing the book, what has been your greatest takeaway for you as a person that you've gained from all of this?
I'm coming up with a different answer now. I've been asked that question before, but just now a different answer is coming forth. It's really the confidence that I can do something that I've always wanted to do. That, when you spend so many years thinking you can't do something and to actually then do it, it gives you confidence to take on more things. I've got a whole I hate that word bucket list. I've got a whole big list of things that I want to do, and this gives me the confidence to do them, to go, to start working toward them as well. So I think that's my biggest thing. It's really given me, without sounding too dramatic, a new lease on life.
Awesome. And can we expect some more books in the future as well? Or
I'm certainly planning on it, so long as my brain holds up. My memory and all those things, I definitely want to continue writing.
Well, it's been fabulous having you talk about this very important topic that doesn't get enough, attention. And everyone, please go get Embracing Envy today. Now, where can people find out more about you and get your book?
Okay, the book, the easiest thing is Amazon or any of the major online booksellers like Barnes & Nobles. It's called Embracing Envy, Finding the Spiritual Treasure in Our Most Shameful Emotion. If you just put Embracing Envy, that should pull it up. Anybody who wants to contact me or find out more about me, my website is my name, Josh Gressel, JoshGressel, 2 S's, EL.com.
That's fabulous. Well, I thank you so much for coming out here and sharing on this very important topic. And before we head on out, is there any last words you'd like to leave with our audience?
Oh, I think believe in yourselves. You're not defective. Just believe in yourselves and take the first step. That's all you need to do.
That is a perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Josh, for coming out to Savvy Central Radio.
Thanks for having me, Christina.
A new mix to business networking and interviews. Join Savvy Central Radio for our third live interview/networking event, the focus being marketing in the 21st century. Our guest this June 17th will be Malco Ebers of NYBC. Get your tickets today at bit.ly.com/savvyradio.